This is the County Line Podcast, a production of Free Speech America. And now, here are your hosts, Kris Ranney, Garth Hilton, and Kevin Virgil.
Good morning, everybody. Well, or whenever you're listening to this, I suppose, or watching this. Welcome to the County Line Podcast, where we are learning and living liberty from the kitchen table to the county line. And again, we have to thank you so much for tuning into us. Kris is here as usual. Today we're going to be without Kevin. All three of us are just ordinary citizens like you guys, and we all have to bring home the bacon, and he's got something that he has to do to bring home the bacon today. So Kris and I are here and in the Free Speech America virtual studios as usual. And we, the people, we need to exercise the God-given power that our Constitution, that we have granted ourselves in the Constitution, in order to keep tyranny at bay. And one of the best ways that we do that is through free speech. And that's what we're about. But we're also about localism. And how do we maintain our liberty locally? Because if we can't maintain it locally, please, let's not pretend that we could maintain it federally across the entire United States. So we are blessed with a unique system of government that has federalism at the heart of the republic, and even down into the states, county by county. We have power. We have the ability to learn and live liberty from the kitchen table to the county line. And so that's why we exist. Good morning, Kris. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Garth. I'm doing well. A little sleepy.
Good.
I had a hard time sleeping last night. So my husband and I were chuckling because we're both having trouble sleeping. My problem is getting to sleep at night. So I think it was about 1:30 when I drifted off. His problem is going to sleep early, but then waking up at 3:30. So I was going to sleep about the time he was waking up. But other than that, I'm great. It's going to be a gorgeous day today.
Good. Hey, I do want to let everybody know that if you appreciate this podcast and if you're enjoying it and you would like to support the efforts of Free Speech America, which is our umbrella nonprofit, we try and do a lot of great work in the area of educating and activating people locally for liberty on a wide range of topics that have to do with liberty, not just free speech. So we would love your support. And one of the best ways that you could support us is by being a monthly donor. And we're starting a mug club. So if you wanted to be a monthly donor at the $25 level or more, we can get you a County Line Podcast mug or a Free Speech America mug, whichever one you prefer. And you can be sipping your coffee with one of our mugs while you listen to us. And so,
or a T-shirt.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Or a T-shirt.
We have
whatever you would like.
T-shirts too. Yeah.
You bet. So become a part of the Free Speech America Mug Club or get your T-shirt. We would love to have you partner with us. It does make a difference in what we're able to accomplish. And especially our annual largest project that we have is a fireworks show. And we'll see if that happens. But this is a way that we can ensure that this happens every year is through sponsorships or even through this type of support on a monthly basis. So thank you for thinking about that. I know it's tight here in America right now, but, there's ways that we can bless ourselves and our kids and grandkids moving into the future through little small investments like this. So God bless you. And let's see, today, I know Kris is loaded for bear, has a lot of different topics that she'd like to go through. I know I'm interested in looking at transactional gold and what's kind of happening right now in various states with transactional gold. And so Kris, why don't you go ahead and kind of run through a little bit of the things that are on your radar, and then we can hit transactional gold and then go through some of the ones that you want to address. So
great. Thank you, Garth. Great intro. Before I really get started, I want to remind everyone to please like, share, and subscribe. That's a fabulous way to help support what we're trying to do and to share the message if you like the issues we talk about and highlight. please share those with friends and family. That would be amazing. So just a
Indeed.
friendly reminder, do that now. Boy, I don't know. I've got a list as long as my arm, Garth. I've got some information about some new nominees as well as advisors. I've got a couple updates on some bills working their way through Des Moines.
Okay.
I've got some not so pleasant issues about surrounding children and safety of children. Update on DOGE. So plenty.
Okay.
We'll see what we get to. But why don't you go
Okay.
ahead and start out
Sounds
with
good.
your transactional gold, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I wanted to update everybody. And if this is the first time you're hearing about transactional gold and silver, I really recommend that you go to either constitutionalcurrency.com or transactionalgold.com. It'll end up at the same website. But this is the work of Kevin Freeman from The Blaze. He has a show there called Economic War Room, and he has done an incredible job of putting together a constitutional means for us to save ourselves from inflation and from our fiat currency that's called the Federal Reserve Note. And this is a project that constitutionally, Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution gives the power to the states to create currency as long as that currency is based in gold and silver. And what this will allow us to do on a voluntary basis, every citizen on a voluntary basis would be able to say, you know what, I would like to take some of my paycheck and be able to put it into an account, just like I have now with my credit union or my bank, where I put my Federal Reserve Note, the US dollar, in. But I'm going to have this particular account backed by gold and silver. It'll be gold and silver. And I'll be able to take my debit card from this account and use it anywhere that I currently do transactions, whether that's Amazon or online somewhere, or whether it's at your grocery store. But what we all know about gold and silver is that it helps us during times of recession and in inflationary moments to keep the value of our money. For instance, you could go back in time, let's say to when the first automobiles were introduced. And if you had $400 in $20 bills in back then, like let's say it's 1923 or something, I don't remember the exact date, but you could go and buy a top of the line Oldsmobile for $400. Okay. Now, if you were living back then and you thought to yourself, well, I'm going to put these dollar bills aside, $400 worth, for my great great grandchild, and then he'll be able to buy a car when he's ready to buy a car. Would you rather have those $400 worth of dollar bills just in paper, or would you want it in gold pieces? Because right now, that same amount today in gold would be worth about $58,000 to $60,000, and your great great grandchild would be able to go and buy a car. But if it was just the paper dollar bill, what would it be worth today? Well, since then, the dollar bill that we currently have, which isn't the same as it was, 100 years ago, because it used to be backed by gold, but no longer is. Right now, you couldn't buy 2 sets of tires for a car with the US dollar, $400 today. So transactional gold is this amazing way for the states to say, you know what, we're going to create lifeboats, life ships for our citizens in America that can come alongside the Titanic of the US dollar and help rescue people's bank accounts from the inflation that's currently going on. And right now, we're having some incredible movement of this moving forward in Utah. It looks like they're going to have fully transactional gold and silver by the end of this session from the state of Utah. And as soon as that happens in Utah, guess where I'm going to go and do my banking? I'm going to do my banking with a bank in Utah that I can have my money backed by gold and silver. So it's passed the House. It's going to the Senate, where the Senate has said that they're going to pass it, and the governor will sign it. So barring some awful snafu, be praying for it. Looks like Utah will have transactional gold and silver this session. Oklahoma is making great progress as well. I believe it's already passed the House in Oklahoma, waiting for the Senate to act, but it's looking very positive there. Texas, I mean, who knows? Texas is... Governor Abbott, though, said he was asked in the state policy meeting that just happened last week. Somebody stood up and asked, would you pass this if it comes, would you sign it if this legislation comes to your desk? And Governor Abbott said, you bet your money on it. I would pass this. I would sign this bill. So, and Florida is also making great progress on this and could be the second state this year to pass transactional gold and silver. So there's some
what's it
great
looking
momentum.
like in Iowa, Garth?
Well, what's it looking like in Iowa right now today at 12:45 a.m. PM, sorry. There's going to be a subcommittee on it in the House. So hopefully there will be some growth in Iowa and that it'll get past this subcommittee. But unfortunately, it's dead in Iowa Senate because of one man, Rosenboom, who is the committee head at state government here in Iowa, where the bill is, and he said he's not ever going to put it in committee. And we know for a fact it's because he has a relative who's in banking, and this person has his ear, and that's all you need in Iowa, for a good bill to get killed in committee, to never make it to the floor for an up or down vote. All you have to do is have some pansy legislature in leadership who can sink good constitutional liberty proposals. And so the senator I'm speaking of right now, his name is Rosenboom. Hopefully he's going to retire. He said that he's going to, but he said that once before. But I can't wait to get a person like that out of government.
Question.
Please.
Are there any private sector partners in the state that would be supportive or helping to educate Iowans about transactional gold?
Right now, it's mostly a grassroots movement, citizens who are interested in it, and other kind of citizen activist groups. In terms of an industry that is behind it, I haven't really found or seen an industry that is. Now, there's examples of individual business owners and so forth who support it from kind of a grassroots activist kind of perspective. But in terms of for instance, like pawn shops, gold and silver, or other gold and silver merchants who are selling it as an investment, as a asset class. I really don't know of those folks and where they're at in terms of people that are based in Iowa and how they might be helping support it.
Right.
But
another question.
The banking industry, for some reason, is afraid of it, which makes no sense at all. First of all, if they feel like they have to keep people, because sometimes what you hear is they're afraid of their liquidity. Like everybody's going to pull out of the bank if this becomes available and start banking where there's gold and silver backed accounts. But then if that's their concern, why would they think that so many customers are going to leave the US dollar for gold and silver? And then if that is really true, then are these banks trying to keep people in a burning house that they want to escape from? It doesn't make any sense. But here's the thing that's crazy about it is if the banks would do a little bit of research like they've done in Utah, like they've done in Florida, where they've done the studies, innovative bankers can see that this is a way that they can prosper. For instance, let me give you an example. if a bank is offering mortgages where somebody is paying using their gold and silver deposits instead of the US dollar, and the banks are getting paid in gold and silver, well, guess what's not going to be inflationary for the bank? Gold and silver. They're going to make money against the dollar if they're receiving their mortgages in gold and silver. So I'm not sure why they're fearful. I mean, at one point they were like, oh, we could never have checking accounts based out of a money market account. We can't do that. But innovative banks eventually found ways, and they said, you know what? This could be good for us. We should get into this kind of market where people are able to write checks out of their investment accounts. So I guess it's going to be a longer education process than I thought. But that's kind of where we're at in Iowa. Hopefully it'll move forward in the House today. Be praying for that. Reach out to your legislatures. But wherever you're listening to us from, there's 25 states right now that have some sort of active bill that's building momentum towards transactional gold and silver. So go to transactionalgold.com, find your state, see if there's an active bill, and call your legislators today, this week, because we're in the heart of many of the sessions for passing legislation, and you need to reach out and say, I want to be able to transact in gold and silver and to save my family from inflation. So any other thoughts or questions?
I do have a question. I'm the queen of workaround. Like, if you tell me I can't do something, then I'm going to figure out how can I. Is there any way that Iowans or Iowa businesses can participate, I guess, by proxy with Utah banks if they do, in fact, get that passed?
Yes. As far as I understand the legislation, and it would be to the benefit of the state to open it up to every U.S. citizen. So I would be able to go and do business with the Iowa, Iowa, if they would ever do it, but the Utah system. And so then Utah, as a state who is supporting this network of transactional gold capability, would then charge me a small fee to be a member of that banking institution that is participating in this. So maybe it'll be like half of 1% of what I spend would go to the state as revenue, which why wouldn't Iowa or any other state want to have a transactional gold account and then have competition between the states in terms of who has the most transparency, who has the least expensive fees, and so forth. But it could be a source of revenue for the states who are brave enough to step out and do this. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So I know it's not really related. It's like talking apples and oranges, but how does this in any way tie into what you see splashed all over the news about the gold? Where's the gold? It reminds me of that commercial you remember from the 80s. I think it was for Burger King, and there was this really old woman, and she gets on the screen and she's like, "Where's the beef?"
Yep. No,
I think of that whenever it's like, "Where's the gold?"
Any of you millennials or younger are going to have to get on TikTok or whatever and find where's the beef.
You're not going to know that cultural reference.
But it was funny. You should check it out.
It's really interesting, with the focus I feel like Trump is bringing intentionally to gold. I mean, they're really playing up that narrative about doing an audit of Fort Knox. And of course, Fort Knox isn't the only location where we have gold stored, but that's the story they're pushing. So that's going to be a fascinating story to unravel. But, aside from just the drama of, where is that gold? Is it there? Is it going to be like opening up Al Capone's tomb and it's empty, or Al Capone's storage unit and it's empty?
Right.
Who knows? But I guess to me, I look at the broader narrative that Trump is really putting a lot of focus on gold, and I don't pretend to be an economist or to really understand how that really affects, although I have heard him in the past talk about returning to a gold-based economy, or I don't know if he's referred to like a partial gold-based economy. I don't know. I don't remember, but it's a fascinating narrative to, really be focusing on gold and, and kind of bringing that back into people's minds. And so I don't know how that would relate to your transactional gold legislation, but it's an interesting intersection.
It is. And I think it is more powerful and probably even better for the states to assert themselves against the Federal Reserve note and the fiat currency of the federal government, and to implement it state by state as possible, where Americans voluntarily get to say, I'm going to go off the US dollar and I'm going to have my transactions based in gold and silver. One of the reasons why I think that's a little bit healthier than, I'm not sure exactly what Trump would do or how it would work with the Treasury. But I know I've heard stories about Scott Bessent and that there's some large player in the world buying gold right now, and that it's probably the U.S. Treasury out there doing that. But I know in terms of this idea of medium-sized rescue ships, which medium-sized, I mean, if the state of Texas does it, it's probably the 8th or 5th largest economy in the world. But these little rescue ships coming along and people voluntarily adopting it, there wouldn't be such a large dislocation. Like if we tried to go ahead and back 89 trillion in debt with gold, right off the bat. I mean, that would be insane. But so I think this is a safer and better way to do it. And it also empowers the states to be like, you know what, we can do this. This is in the Constitution. And it would be better to have that kind of federalism taking place. So yeah, that's transactional gold for right now. Cool. Progress being made. Please pray for Utah, pray for Florida, pray for Oklahoma and Texas. It would be life-changing for every American, but honestly, for the entire world, if states in America started to have currency backed by gold and silver, it would start bringing sanity back to world markets.
Right. Well, and it kind of plays into just a broader conversation of our economy and what our economy is based on, how it operates. And I've heard a lot of discussion about Trump and his team, and what they're trying to do is just really remaking the way America does business, and kind of, well, I guess I can't think of the term that they use, but it's like, can you fix a broken system? So can you fix it, or is it better just to destroy it and build something else new? I personally am kind of a destroyer. Let's just whack it down, pull the weed out by its roots, and then, do something else. And it seems to be kind of the impulse that we're seeing, but it'll be interesting to see. I'm not an economist, and I don't really understand much. I can't even balance my own checkbook. My husband can tell you that. But
I really recommend everybody go straight to the horse's mouth, find Kevin Freeman, Economic War Room, or even better, Pirate Money Radio or transactionalgold.com. But he's done several podcasts. Just go to YouTube, Kevin Freeman, Transactional Gold, and listen to the man and the plan. It is brilliant. And yes, so please do that.
Can you be sure to put those links in our show notes?
Absolutely.
That way people can click on that later, and it's an easy go-to. So,
yep.
Okay.
Indeed.
All right. So start on my long list. One of the things I wanted to talk about has to do, I'm going to share some tabs on my laptop.
Sure.
This is the first one I wanted to talk about. It's our new USDA Secretary of the Agriculture. She was sworn in a couple weeks ago. Her name is Brooke Rollins. She's an interesting woman. She's originally from the state of Texas, and she's served in Trump's past team 4 years ago in some different capacities. But she's now our new USDA head, and she's pro-farmer and talking a lot about trying to support America's farmers and being, just kind of a cheerleader for farming and ranching. And one of the reasons I got interested in her nomination was because of I guess a podcast or a podcaster that I follow. I'm going to share that with you here in a minute. And they have brought this gentleman on as a advisor to Brooke. I guess that's why I think she's interesting. And his name is Joel Salatin. I'm sorry. And he is a regenerative farmer. He's well known in the arena of local, like grow local, buy local, less chemicals, kind of more back to nature, back to old ways in terms of, how he recommends farming. And he's been kind of an outsider and taken a lot of criticism from, I guess, more standard practices in terms of farming. But he's been brought on as an advisor, and he reminds me a little bit of RFK Jr. in terms of health.
Okay.
He's kind of an outsider in terms of looking at things from a different perspective and kind of evaluating pharmaceuticals and the big drug companies, the big chemical companies, that sort of thing. And so I just find that fascinating that he's been on and been brought on as an advisor. It would be, and he would be someone that most people that are doing like local beef, local chickens, local eggs, local milk, local vegetable stands would be very familiar with. So I just thought that was an interesting note that I thought would be interesting to people. So that's that. The other thing I was going to talk about a little bit is just a couple things that are going on in the Iowa legislation or the legislature in Iowa. So we've got some bills going through. One I thought was kind of interesting and thought I'd share it is that Iowa is advancing a bill that requires schools to offer firearm safety classes to high school kids. I thought that was interesting. Certainly not earth-shattering, but I think it's kind of a positive move in terms of gun safety. And I'm, of course, a huge Second Amendment supporter, but I love the idea of more education. In fact, I was thinking, it reminds me, I have a good friend who's in his late 70s, and he tells me of a time when he was in high school he went to Kern, which is a junior high. Well, it was Abraham Lincoln at the time, in Council Bluffs, going up to the field, and they actually had rifles with real bullets in them. And the schools taught kids in that generation how to use a rifle. I don't know if they taught the girls. It might have only been the boys, but they actually taught them how to shoot, how to load, how to clean a gun. So far removed from where we are now, but I just thought that was interesting. So I love that they're kind of bringing that back in. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I hope that passes, and that the schools that want to do it, that have the community support, that they go ahead and do it and show that guns at school, guns just in general, aren't the problem. Anyways, that would be fascinating. I think well worth the effort. So yeah, interesting. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of surprised me, but I read a little bit about who's sponsoring it, and makes good sense. So the other Iowa legislation that's kind of related to some issues we've been talking about, but and one we'll talk about further on Friday when it comes to the transgender issue that has been going through the committees this week. But the other one I wanted to talk about was a bill requiring medical abortion clinics to inform patients of reversal options in the Iowa House. So I think that was really interesting that they're considering a bill so that if a patient chooses to move forward with an abortion and has a visit with the clinic, that they have to advise her about reversal options. So
I don't
I'm sure
even
that
understand
will.
that. What do you? What does that mean? Reversal
So
options.
so it depends on, like, most abortions, early abortions are affected by medication. So there's certain medications that women can take that cause the
That kill the baby.
cause the uterus to expel the baby, everything that's in there. It's basically, I think, how it works. I'm not a nurse or a
Okay.
doctor, but my
Yeah.
understanding. But
Okay.
there are some medications that if, say, she goes forward, takes these medications, and then, a couple hours later regrets it and wants to change her mind, that there are some treatment options that are available that would give her a chance at trying to reverse that. So that's basically all it is. It's just requiring
Wow.
the education.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
yeah, I thought that
I
was
didn't
pretty
know
fun.
something like that was even possible, a reversal after you
Mm-hmm.
started like a chemical abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I didn't even know that
Yeah.
was
Yeah, I think if
feasible.
it's done early enough. Of course, I've been involved with the pro-life movement for a long time, and so I've heard a lot of stories
Yeah.
about that. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a good direction to go.
Sure.
Um, Again, just a reminder: like, share, subscribe, help support us. We'd really appreciate that. We'll put
Absolutely.
that little advertisement in. Um, I have a story that is kind of dark, so I debated sharing it or not, but I kind of went down a rabbit hole last night when I couldn't sleep, and I noticed it on X this morning, and I thought it was an interesting coincidence, I guess. But the story, it's by authors named Jason Leopold and Anthony Cormier, and they say that the CIA files say that staffers in the CIA committed sex crimes involving children, but they were never prosecuted.
I've heard about that.
So, and I think from my understanding of the post is that there are people now calling for that. I found it on an X channel by the woman's name is Lindsay Penny. She says this case needs to be reopened and everyone involved should be prosecuted to the fullest extent. Only a godless, sick and twisted society would allow crimes like these against children to go unpunished.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be following that and kind of seeing what else comes out with that. But
Yeah.
then how that relates to what I was listening to last night, I was watching some YouTube videos about veterans of different branches of the military, be they Rangers or SEAL teams or special forces of some sort. And you know how once you watch one video, I don't know how often you guys watch YouTube, but once you watch a video on YouTube, whatever that topic is, the YouTube algorithm will automatically feed you more stories on that. And so I ended up watching probably 4 or 5 different people giving testimony about being in different arenas in the Middle East specifically. It's
Mm-hmm.
probable around the world, but their stories were in the Middle East, talking
Yeah.
about the prevalence of sexual abuse of children in Afghanistan, in Iraq, Pakistan, some of those cultures, that it's actually an
Mm-hmm.
accepted part of their culture, that especially men abusing boys, it's a very common practice. Uh, some
Right.
of the um, some of the interviewers were asking, what percentage of those societies participate in that, and they were kind of hard pressed to come up with a number, but they were guessing anywhere from 20 to 40%. And
Mm.
I just thought there's been a lot of focus on child sexual abuse in the last few years, which is a good thing. it's certainly a good thing. But in just understanding how prevalent it is in our country, as well as others, it's just incredible. And I hesitate to talk about it only because it's not pleasant. And there are things that I come across in this world that I would rather not know. But I feel like as responsible citizens, it's really important that we're informed on these issues. I did just a little bit of research and found this on a website titled National Center for Victims of Crime. And it suggests that during a 1 year period, this is in recent history, that 16% of children ages 14 to 17 had been sexually victimized. And then over the course of a lifetime, 28% of kids age 14 to 17 have also been victimized. And children who are the most vulnerable to sexual abuse are between the ages of 7 and 13.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sorry to bring that up. But
No.
I did just some brief calculations. Again, math isn't my strong suit, but I think I came up to, in the millions if you calculate those statistics out based on how many kids are currently that age. It's in the millions, and that's just here in the United States.
Yeah. It
And
makes me
so,
wonder, I have no idea. But I'd love to see if there's any stats on, the prevalency of that kind of abuse, if it's a single parent home versus a 2-parent home. And also even in terms of income status, is it more prevalent among those who are, closer to the poverty line, or, just things I'd be interested in learn a
right,
little bit more about for some reason. But
right.
I
And
know for sure there's
yeah,
like many different ways that a civilization can sacrifice its children in the name of ideology. I mean, eventually, you could go back to ancient times and see that cultures would literally sacrifice children at an altar to a deity. And there was an ideology behind that, or a religious purpose behind that. And today, in many ways, there's an ideology or a religious purpose behind some of the ways that children are being sacrificed today. And quite often, one of those is through the trans agenda, and that to try and decouple the idea of male and female from birth, that these are the two sexes, and then to create something new out of whole cloth and call it gender, and to begin to sacrifice kids in this kind of loss of understanding of civilization moorings, which we understand there's an agenda, there's an ideology behind this, to the point where some states like California are willing to remove children from their parents, hide them, and perform surgical things on them to forever change the child, remove their innocence, and destroy their reproductive capabilities in the future for an ideology. And this is a form of child sacrifice. Or kids who are being trafficked over the border and then are put into sex slavery or something else, or just become homeless. And I think there was a study done, and I'd have to try and find it, see if I can. But I think Michael Schellenberger was talking about it recently, of how many times a homeless girl in the state of California has been raped is like an astonishing amount. And that's another form of child sacrifice, as far as I'm concerned, because of an ideology that is just against civil society, against civilization. So, anyways.
Well, and it would be interesting to pull all these what seems like disparate statistics and arenas that involve this whole topic. I mean, just the amount of children that have come across the southern border unaccompanied, and I still don't feel satisfied like we've had any good answer to where these children are. And there's
Absolutely, we haven't.
Yeah, there's some suggestions, and I think most Americans have a hard time going there just because it's such an unpleasant thought. But there's some suggestions that a lot of these kids have been sold into some kind of sex trade and slavery with the help of some of the NGOs. And
yeah, absolutely.
It borders on the idea of a conspiracy theory, which I traffic in regularly, and am proud to say that. But
I know. I hate that term.
There are people suggesting that that's where these kids, that some are trafficked into labor, doing cheap labor, but that many of them are trafficked, for that. Of course, and then to even take it another step lower, which I hesitate to even say it, but some are suggesting that a lot of these kids have been used for organ harvesting. And I know most people are like, oh, that's crazy. That's just crazy talk. But I don't know. I think Americans are going to find some things out in the coming year that are going to be beyond our imagination.
This is a human nature problem. We have a human nature problem. We are prone to evil. And we as Americans might be able to see a story about the Chinese and how they will imprison certain parts of their population and then do organ harvesting out of these certain populations. And we're like, oh yeah, that's those Chinese, what awful people. It's the Chinese Communist Party, doing this to other Chinese. It's a human nature problem. And we're humans in America, and there's humans in China, and there's humans in Afghanistan. And we know that adults who are evil will do evil things to those who are most easily oppressible, if that's a word. And that's children. And it's happened all over the earth. I mean, ever since humanity fell from the garden.
Well, it's such a...
just look at Britain and the gang rape culture in Britain and what they've allowed to happen to these girls. It is beyond astonishment. But again, this is that anti-civilization kind of ideological, religious aspect that is as dangerous and as perverted and awful as if you were to go to the Bible and read about Moloch and people putting children on an altar and burning them. So this is a human problem, and we have to have brave, courageous humans to stand up against it and to say, this is wrong, and we're going to right it. And I pray for Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, and but we need to do something locally too. We just can't sit on our hands and be like, oh, let's wait for the federal government to do something. What are we doing locally? How are we engaging?
We'll share it in the notes too. I'm thinking of two different events that our nonprofit Free Speech America has hosted in the past. One was a film that we showed to the public that actually is a documentary called Grid Shock. And Grid Shock is a film that documents human trafficking in Iowa, not in the U.S. We're talking about right in our state. And it's
Absolutely.
got some shocking statistics. And I think most people think of Midwestern states like Iowa, Ohio, and Idaho because people get us mixed up, all three of those states, but as being very wholesome and very safe. But it's
Right.
in every state, every county, and it's pervasive.
Yeah.
And in talking with law enforcement here locally, when we showed that film, they complained that their biggest issue was a lack of funding, that there's just
Hmm.
no money allocated or very little resources allocated to combat it, but that it is a big problem. And so I feel like awareness is number one, important for the general
Absolutely.
public to be aware of it and to be educated about it and to look at it. I'd much rather watch videos about gardening and those sort of things, but it's really important to be educated. The other event we did with Free Speech America, which was very eye opening to me, was we hosted a young woman by the name of Chloe Cole, and she's
Hmm.
gained some national renown because she, with the support of her parents, was transitioned from being a female to a male in her, I think she was 12, 14 when she
When it
transitioned.
started.
Yeah, when it started. And I think by the time she hit 17 or 18, she had decided, that she had made a mistake. And she had
Yes.
had a full mastectomy surgically, but she had not transferred to any further procedures that they call bottom surgeries. That's the term.
Right.
But she brought up a really interesting point, and it's again, there's so many rabbit holes in regards to this issue that most Americans don't even consider. Like, it had never occurred to me. But she said one of the reasons the transgender movement is pushing for transitioning children, especially at a young age, like prior to puberty, is that children who are treated with hormone blocking medications before they reach puberty basically are stunted. So, the common defense from the other side of the aisle would say, oh, well, it's reversible. If you're a girl and you take testosterone and you decide you want to be a girl again, you can just stop taking the drugs, and vice versa. But one of the points that Chloe made is she explained that if you transition at that young age, you don't just block puberty, you skip it. And so children who
Right.
aren't allowed to grow normally through that period of their life, they don't grow properly. They don't reach their full height or stature. Their bones don't develop. Their facial features don't develop. Certainly, their sexual organs and that that whole component of their physicality doesn't develop. And so, they basically,
Yeah.
even if at 18 or 19 they decide, oh, I don't want to take those medications anymore, that they basically are frozen in time at the age when they first started taking those medications, and that most of them don't
Yeah.
ever develop normally.
Right.
And
It's impossible.
and well, here's the kicker. Here's the scary part about why the certain segments of our population promote it. She said basically you're making permanent children. So if you are someone who involves themselves in pedophilia, but you don't want the legal ramifications that brings with it, that if you have a population of young adults, say 18, 19, 20, but they're frozen in time at maybe a developmental age of 12 physically, that makes for available victims for the pedophiles who can participate in that activity without the
Hmm.
legal ramifications, because technically these people are adults. And
Right.
I was just floored by that
Hmm.
comment when she
Yeah.
explained that. It's like I had never considered
Yeah.
that, but
I
she said
remember
that
that. It was a
that is a
powerful moment.
huge, yeah, that's a huge
Yeah.
motivation for why they're pushing it. And it's just awful. I mean, but
Yeah.
again, unless someone tells
Yeah.
you that, how would, as an average American, would you even imagine that would be a
Right.
motivation for that agenda?
Yep. Yep.
So anyway,
Well, that's fascinating. Um, and dark.
Dark.
But, this is why darkness has to be fought with light. And a good part of that light, of course, is made up of truth, but also love and doing what is loving, which is protecting. So, anyways, yep.
Protecting
and that's
the
one of
vulnerable.
the things that we want to do here
Right.
at Free Speech America, and with the County Line podcast, is how do we protect the innocent? How do we maintain liberty for them before they're trapped in a prison for the rest of their lives because of some ideological, religious, sacrificial system? Anyways, yeah.
So
wow, that's a lot.
Well, I have a couple more things I was going to share, maybe a little bit lighter. I'm going to share my screen again. And I want to show you this website, which I visit every day. This is the Department of Government Efficiency website. It's affectionately called DOGE. And it is a website that's been put up to keep Americans abreast of the fraud, waste, and abuse that DOGE has been finding. And as I'm paging through here, you can see it's organized by the different departments. As you page down, you see there's different contracts that DOGE has found and recommended canceling and cutting. So it gets into the weeds on that. So if you like that kind of stuff, that's interesting. It talks about real estate in terms of properties that our government owns and could divest of just to save Americans more money. And as I'm paging through, you can just see hundreds of thousands, even up into the millions of different agencies that are being looked at and being recommended because, so many people aren't even going into work these days. But anyway, so I just wanted to share that with Americans. And so if you are curious, you hear a lot of talk about DOGE and what they're doing. Don't let it confuse you.
Yeah.
But that's a good resource, and I will try and include that in the notes. So keep an eye on that. That's kind of fun.
Great.
Upcoming. Let me see if I make sure. Yeah, here we go. An upcoming guest that we're working on getting for you, but I wanted to preview him on today's show, has to do with local. So one of our efforts is to really drill down and be able to share with our audience about the importance of local autonomy, local sovereignty. And so when it comes to transactional gold being brought to the states, or even efforts being brought down to the county in terms of food supply, and we're all about sovereignty and freedom in making decisions. And so if you want to buy pasture-raised beef from your farmer friend next door, fresh eggs, fresh vegetables, or even unpasteurized milk, we just think Americans should have the freedom to choose those things. And so I just want to highlight a friend of mine, actually a man I know, who is living this. His name is John Springhauer, and I'm sharing. This is just a page from his YouTube channel, and he's got a small farm near McClellan, Iowa. And you can buy.
The volume on that is really high.
Is it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Cottonwood Hill Farms. So on the agenda today, we got some random things we're working on.
Is that better?
Yeah. Now we can hear you.
10 or 11,
anyway,
like
we don't have to hear it necessarily all of it, but this is John. You can buy eggs
right
from
now,
him. You can buy milk. Well, no, you can't buy milk. That's not the right way to put it. You can participate in unpasteurized milk with his farm. Beef, pork, depending on what he's been raising that year. But we're trying to get him on to talk about just going local when it comes to food and other products in our communities. And so we will include that in our link, but want to bring him on board probably
it's still good to use
in the next couple of weeks. He's super busy, but I'm working on it. So
Good. Yeah. There we go.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. So that's kind of coming up, something we're working on.
Yep.
And I
We're
think
also
that's all I
working on.
got.
Yeah, we're working on Adam Smith coming on too from
Right.
Front Porch Republic, which is all about liberty and localism. Yeah, I can't remember their tagline right now, but it is something like freedom in the front porch or something like that. But anyways, I'm really looking forward to the conversation with him.
Right.
So do check out frontporchrepublic.com.
There we go.
So
wonderful.
Anyways.
So, yeah.
All right.
And then I've got an outro video to play if I can make this work right. It's from a friend of mine who also is a podcaster in Iowa. He's more toward Des Moines, but he's run for office. He's got a nonprofit. He's worked on school board issues. So he's a champion of state and local efforts. And we're bringing him hopefully here in the next couple weeks as well. But he made a great video that I came across early this morning and found it really encouraging. So I just wanted to play that for you guys as we go out, and we're going to sign off and see you next week.
Don't forget to subscribe, to share, give us a thumbs up, however you can through any of the ways that you're watching us right now or listening to us, and write a review. That would be wonderful. Again, we're just an upstart. We really do need your help if you've benefited and enjoyed it in some way. Also consider supporting Free Speech America and the work that we're doing locally. Become a member of the Mug Club. $25 a month, get a t-shirt, get a mug, and we're looking forward to having you back here soon, and just greatly appreciate your time.
Yeah, and I also would ask that if you have local issues, whether they be county or state, that you think require some attention or would like to have highlighted, we are open to suggestions, because we talk about a lot of national issues, but really our desire is to really bring a local focus to our podcast, just to educate and encourage people on. So reach out to us. We're open to suggestions.
Get us those at freespeechamerica.org through the info box. Just write us a little email there and we'll get your suggestion. And if we think it's feasible, and we'll certainly probably reach back out to you, but possibly even create an episode around it. So great idea.
That's good. All right, here goes. This is from Oliver Bardwell, a friend of mine. And this is his voice too. He's got a nice voice. Here we go.
Finally, be strong in the Lord in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand the evil day, and having done all to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit, with all prayer and supplication. To that end, keep alert with all perseverance, making supplication for all the saints. Put on the armor of God.
If you are new to the podcast, be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform and join us next week for the next installment of the County Line Podcast.